last session we have talked about the moods and emotions, and we have also talked about the hope cycle and frustration cycle. That is how an individual he goes with the responses in case of the when it is the hope cycle is to be developed and when it is the frustration cycle which is likely to be developed. In the moods and emotion part 2, I will discuss about the executive glow up and burnout, research paper, how can managers influence moods, implications for managers. Now, in case of the executive glow up and burnout, we will see that is in this particular case the organizational climate that how it is going to be the change. It can be going either it is to be the hostile organizational climate or it will be the supportive organizational climate. In case of the hostile organizational climate, the managerial effectiveness will be very low and the employees they will not have the positive moods and emotions, and as a result of which they will not take the initiatives, they will not be risk oriented. While in case of the supportive organizational climate is there, then definitely in that case the employees will be more participative and they will be more structured and increasing the importance of the employees contribution. So, therefore, in this case what is required is that is the organizational climate is to be created in a very supportive way. In case of the coping moods, that is how moods are to be coping, and then that is the there may be the assertions and the collaboration, and in assertion and the collaboration it can be the coping mode can be the dysfunctional or it can be functional. So, we have talked about it is like the stress. If the stress is there, then there should be the practices of the coping the stress and the functional and dysfunctional as I talked about. So, in the case of the coping mode, then what is required is that stress has to be functional and stress has to be the productive. If it is a productive stress is there, then definitely in that case we will find that is if this is the inverted U, and in the coping for this coping mode is there. So, this will increase this particular stress mode, it is a more productivity and then it will be declining is there. So, here the difference between this diagram and this diagram is very clear, that is the if there is a coping mode is functional, then definitely here you will increase that particular productivity, and therefore, in case of the productivity and in case of the relationship between the stress low and high, we will find that is the because the coping mode is there, and the coping mode means what is the coping mode? Coping mode is that is the where the person is able to relax the stress, maybe physically or mentally is there. So, therefore, when there is a physically exercises are done, yoga is done, or there is the momentum in at the workplace, so then definitely the person will be having the functional stress more, and if the functional stress is more, the productivity is more. So, in that case it becomes very important, that is the if we are talking about this case of these emotions and mood, then definitely this functional and dysfunctional stress that will become very important. What is required? That is the to make the executives the glow up and making the more contribution towards the organization, this coping mode that is required to be have the functional style at the workplace. Whenever we are talking about the role styles, then interventions, role interventions, as I mentioned, there are different roles are there, role of a superior, role of a subordinate, role of a colleague, and therefore, in that case what is importance? I am taking the initiatives, I am having the positive approach and I am approaching my role. So, therefore, in that case if you are having the approach to your role, then definitely you will be getting the higher positions in the organizations, you will getting the more responsibilities, your contribution will be significant contribution, because in that case there is an approach is there. But in case of the role approach, if the there is no role interventions are not there, then in that case there will be avoidance, and if the avoidance is there, then the employee or manager they will not be very positive about the organization and they will burn out. they will stop contributing, they will stop performing. So, therefore, in that case what is required? A manager should create the role interventions in which he gives the importance to the roles, making the participation of the roles, and as a result of which you will find that is the role style that is becoming the more and more popular and approachable. Another very interesting point is that is about the lifestyle. So, what will be the lifestyle? Now in the case when there is a very high stress level, then lifestyle will be descripting, and descripting means that is the stress dissipating, and however, in the case of the another lifestyle, it will be the stress absorbing will be there. So, therefore, in that case what is required? It is required that is the stress is dissipating, and therefore, in that case employee is not having any stress. So, what type of the lifestyle is to be there? So, there are two aspects, one is the physical fit, another is the mental fit. So, when we talk about the physical fit, then in that case regular exercises, the nutrition, lot of research is done, that is the role of nutrition in the managerial performances. So, therefore, at workplace if you are having the balanced diet, if you are having the diet which is the stress relaxing, then definitely in that case you will be physically fit and you will be able to do more job at the workplace as per your choice. While in case of if the lifestyle is dull and there is no physical activity in the lifestyle, definitely the stress level that will be increasing and ultimately will affect at the workplace. So, the lifestyle should not be the stress absorbing, rather than it should be the stress dissipating. Now, we will talk about the mental lifestyle, and in mental lifestyle it becomes very important, a positive approach, positive attitude, listening others, working together. These are the value systems, they are becoming very important. If you are having those type of the value systems, positive value systems, then definitely your stress will be dissipating and the stress absorbing, right, then that will be less. So, what is required? That is to executive glow up. It is very important, that is your lifestyle working at the workplace physically and mentally has to be very positive and stress dissipating and not the stress absorbing. Non-work life, that is the organization community interface. So, therefore, in that case it should be very clear, that is the our non-working life that should be this supportive and not to be the hostile, because if the non-working life will not be supportive, then community interface will be low, and if there will be low community interface, then will less recognition, less interaction with the society, and if it goes like this, then definitely in that case the stress level will be increasing. Another is the job or role efficacy, liking the job. Now, you see that is the we talk about the Holland's model of personality job fit. It talks about that there are the 6 types of the personalities. One is the conventional, realistic, investigative, artistic, social, and enterprising. So, therefore, in that case when we talk about the this type of these relationship between these different personalities, then these different personalities will be either there will be the conventional personalities will be there. If there will be conventional personality, then the nature of job will be more towards the finance is there. If there is a real, this is called the Holland's model, PJF, personality job fit model. And if you are the realistic and then if you are realistic, then in that case the engineering type of the job that will be more suitable for that particular personnel. When we talking about the investigative means research oriented job, then those jobs will be more suitable for the personality. If the personality is artistic, then in that case the person will be more creative, more designing skills, that will be more important is there. Then there will be the social. The social type of the personalities will be, that is more interactive and HR orientation. In human relationship management, that particular personality will be more successful is there. And then the enterprising. Enterprising means creative and risk taking. So, therefore, in that case it becomes very important, that is the person is required to be creative and the risk taking. If the person is creative and risk taking personality, then that will be the enterprising there. So, these 6 types of the personality enterprising: conventional, realistic, investigative, artistic, social and enterprising is there. And this particular job, right, then if job is matching with the personality, there will be the motivating factor. So, for the motivating factor, the matching of the job and personality is very important. You have to understand, introspect, that is the what type of the personality one is having, and therefore, if this type of the personalities are there, then definitely in that case the person will be more having motivated, more motivated. But if the personality is not matching with the job, and the person is doing the job because of his bread and butter forcefully, then definitely in that case it will be very difficult for him to make the very progressive career. So, he will burn out, he will work for some years, and then because of job is not liked by him, because his personality is not like that, and then in that case it will be very difficult for him, that is the to work in that and then definitely then we alienating. Alienating will be there, that is the person will be not involved, he will keep himself away from the workplaces there. So, it becomes very important when executive has to glow up, executive has to be progressive, executive has to be very positive, then in that case his personality should match with the help of the whatever the job he is having. Then we are talking about the personality, that is the how the personality makes a very important role. As we know, in the personality is because of the attributes of the determinants of personality are the heredity, environment and situation. So, because of these factors, an individual's personality is built. Lot of research has been done and identified, that is the even twins. Why the twins? They behave differently. They behave differently because even though their heredity is same, but the environment, what is an environment? Friend, family, society. So, in family there are so many members, other members are there to whom the one person interacts more, and then that will influence the behavior of that child. So, therefore, that particular environment. And the third is the situation, because in this particular situation you will find a person's behave differently. Many times you must have seen that your friends, their friends are since long time you are with your friend, but suddenly a situation arises and there is a breakup in the friendship. So, that breakup in the friendship is not because of the environment, because of that particular situation has arisen and the decision making process, what decision you have taken, and so many factors is there. So, therefore, it becomes the personality, and then if personality is in this case it is in the situation, how do you fight the situation? If you fight the situation very well, then in that case there will be the stress resistant, and therefore, the personality will be, that is whatever the demand comes, and the person is able to meet that particular demand at the workplace. So, the stress will be low. However, when we talk about the attributes of the personality, then we talk about the LOC, locus of control. If we talk about the relationship between the stress and locus of control, those who are having the internal locus of control, so they are more stress resistant. They will not be stress prone because they believe themselves. And as I meant, in this given situation, in a situation the locus of control person, he will be able to fight with the situation. So, this will become the basically the internal locus of control is there. In another case, whenever we are talking about the environmental factors. So, in environmental factors we will find that is the how the stress resistance, because they convert. Like here we can talk about the organizational climate. Organizational climate is a particular environment, and in that environment if the politics is there, then he is able to overcome that particular organizational politics, and therefore, in that case the stress resistance resistant will be there. Stress type. Now, in this diagram, in the previous session I have discussed about the U stress. Where is the U stress in this diagram? Yeah, you are right, U stress is here. This is the U stress. U stress means the maximum stress bearing capacity is there. So, therefore, in that case the person will be having the ability and capacity to bear the stress at the maximum level. But if the person is a stress type, is the stress conversion, then definitely he will be having the distress. So, this distress will making the declining the performance. So, therefore, what is important is that is whenever we are talking about this locus of control, then internal locus of control people, they are having the high U stress as compared to the distress is there. Similarly, we will find that is the self efficacy, liking for self. Those who are having the high self efficacy, liking for self, they will be very positive, smiling, and then in a given situation, okay, I will try to find out how to come out this problem. So, they will smile, they will not under the stress, they will say, okay, this is a challenge, yes, and I accept the challenge. So, therefore, that positive approach will be there, and therefore, in that case you will find there is a U stress that will be very high. Right. So, therefore, in that case that is the stress conversion, it depends on the personality, and that personality will decide that is the how much stress one can bear. In this diagram we will talk lastly we will talk about the on basis of this, that is the stress level is there. So, self obligating, that is then in case is the optimum. Maximum is the stress, while in case of the stress level it is the hypo or the hyper is there. So, either the very low stress, because the person will say I can't do anything, whatever has to be done, it has to be done by the others. So, therefore, in that case it will be the hypo stress and the hyper stress. So, then the blood pressure and heart problems, headache, all will start with the hyper issues is there. So, what we will learn from this particular slide? We will learn from this particular slide, that is the we have to control our stress. If you want to be the glow up, if you want to be the best performer in the organization, what is required? That is, there is supporting organizational climate is required, functional stress strategy is required, positive approach is required, one should be having the lifestyle which is the stress dissipating, then there will be the non-work life that will be the very supportive, job and roles are the motivating, a person is willing to do the job, and then the personality is a stress resistant, and it is not for these rather stress prone, it is not stress prone, there is a U stress, and the capacity of an individual is to bearing the maximum U stress is there, and the stress level is optimum, and therefore, one can say okay God, challenge me, I will test myself, and therefore, in that case that type of the behavior will be there in case of the executive glow up and burnout. But when we are having the left hand side, then definitely that avoidance, stress absorbing, hostile, alienating oneself from the society, group and our workplace, then the stress prone, rather than eustress, it will be distress, and there will be hypo or hyper stress will be there. So, then the person will be burnout. Now, I will talk about the research paper, the state of the heart, emotional labor as emotion regulations reviewed and revised. Here we will find in this particular paper which has been published in the Journal of the Occupational Health Psychology volume 22 number 3 and that is from page number published is 407 to 422. This paper is published in the February 2017 by the authors Alicia A. Grande and Robert C. Malloy, right. So, therefore, this particular research paper, the abstract. So, in abstract it talks about emotional labor has been an area of burgeoning the research interest in occupational health psychology in recent years. So, therefore, it is becoming very important, that is the emotional labor that they are becoming a very important factor and emerging as a problem also, I say, in the society, because the number of emotional labor is increasing, and because of the nature of job. Because when we talk about the occupational health psychology, in occupational health psychology, it talks about that is the whatever is your occupation, and for example, nowadays in the IT industries, and we find that is many people they are getting the very high stress into the IT industries in the recent years is there. So, emotional labor was conceptualized in the early 1980s by the sociologist Early Hostel 1983 as occupational requirements that alienate workers from their emotions is there. Almost 2 decades later, a model was published in Journal of Occupational Health Psychology that viewed emotional labor through a psychological lens as emotion regulation strategies that differentiatingly relate to the performance and well-being. This paper represents a revised model of emotional labor as emotion regulation that incorporates recent findings and represents a multi-level and dynamic nature of emotional labor as the emotion regulation. The original model. Then we will talk about the modified model given under this particular research paper. And in case of the original model, we will talk about the first we will talk about the interaction expectations is there. Now, you see that is the what is your frequency. The frequency is how many times you are having the interaction at the workplace, right. And therefore, like for some bosses they always want to interact with their subordinates. They feel incomplete if they do not interact with the subordinate, right. And some bosses they say why do not waste my time and come only when there is a need, if you require any need then only please come and contact me. So, therefore, the frequency what is the frequency is there. Naturally, it will depend from bosses to bosses, it will depend on from personalities to personalities, and that we have to understand. Therefore, in the situational cues it becomes very important, that is the what is the frequency and then control your emotions. Then there will be the duration. Okay. Frequency might be only for 2 minutes and the frequency may be for the long duration. So, therefore, in that case also that will also affect the emotions of the employees. Then variety. Variety in the interaction expectations. So, for one job, for second job, the third job, fourth job, there will be different colors of the jobs, and then which color do you choose? And then somebody may like only the white color, somebody may like the red color, but it is not the choice. Your boss may like the rainbow, and therefore, in that case it will become very important, that is you are going for the variety, what type of the variety do you have, and in that variety how do you match your own color. Whether if you are only black then definitely you will be emotional labor there at the workplace, because your color is not matching with the rainbow. So, therefore, it becomes very important, that is you have to match with all the colors, right. So, better it is always better, that is you develop your personality characteristics in the rainbow style, right. So, therefore, then that will be very interesting, and the matching and less stress will be there, right, and less emotional labor will be there, situation will be there, and then they display the rules. So, therefore, interaction expectations is, that is the how is your interaction, it is more formal or informal, and therefore, in this case if there is a rules are there and rules regulations follow this and follow that, then in that case definitely there will be the bracket and boundaries, and it will be requiring the this type of the situation to have the more and more carefully to be handled, so that the emotional labor situation will not arise. Then there will be the emotional events. Emotional events will be the positive events, where the appreciation is there, celebrations are there, then there are the more encouragement for the participation, more encouragement for the representation, more the ownership is there, more delegation is there. So, therefore, these all will be the positive events in the emotions, or the boss does not allow to have the more participation, more interaction, no appreciation, and then in that case there will be the negative events. So, it will become very important, that is the you are supposed to have the more positive events than the negative events, but however, it is from the both the sides. So, therefore, you cannot say that it will be positive event from the one side only or negative event from the one side only. In both the cases it is from the both the sides. If one is capable to handle the another situation, then definitely it will be more positive. So, these situational cues that will create the in the emotional labor, there is a deep acting, like. So, therefore, what will happen? They will be the modifying the feelings. Feelings are to be modified, that is the attentional deployment is there, and then in that case there will be the cognitive change. The surface acting will be there modifying the expressions, and in modifying the expressions it will become the response modulation, that is how do you have the response modulation, and if there is a response modulation how do you develop that particular response. So, in individual factors you will make the emotional labor situation. So, what are those dimensions or individual factors which will affect this emotional labor? That is a gender, like in Indian context you will find if there is a female employee, then definitely because of the social structure, right, they may be more forced to be the emotional labor, because they will not express and communicate in extrovert way as compared to the male in the Indian society. So, therefore, gender will also play a very important role in Indian society to be. So, you will find that is the female employees, they are more emotional labor as compared to the male employees. Then the emotional expressivity, as I mentioned, that is the emotional expressivity is in male also. If the person is shy, employee is shy, and then he does not express his emotions, then definitely there will be the more emotional labor chances. Then emotional intelligence. So, emotional intelligence depends on the 5 factor, and that factors depend on those factors depend on the self awareness, self regulation, empathy, motivation and socialization. So, how is the emotional intelligence is there, what level is there, right. If high EQ, emotional quotient, right, high EI, emotional intelligence, then definitely the emotional labor will be low. and then the affectivity is there, and then if that affectivity is there, then definitely in that case these pana, that is the positive affect and negative affect, and therefore this I have also discussed in the happiness, that is there are 3 dimensions: positive affect, negative affect and satisfaction with life. So, here we will find this grantee has taken the only NA and PA, that is the negative affect and the positive affect is there. In organizational factors, these were the individual factors. And if you take the organizational factors, in organizational factors it is the job autonomy, that is how much the autonomy is given at the workplace. If more autonomy is given and balance autonomy is given, positive is there. Then the supervisor support will be, that is the definitely if the supervisor is supportive, then you see that how subordinate he works, and then he will work with the full enthusiasm, full motivation, and in the multiple directions. And then the co-worker support is there. So, it is not only the superior subordinate, but it is the surrounding organizational climate I have discussed in the last slide, and therefore, what type of the co-worker support system is there, that we will see. And if there is a positive and co-worker support system, then definitely what will happen, that is the employee well-being. If you remember, employee well-being I also talked in the happiness. So, therefore, in that case it will be the employee well-being will be there, and there will be no burnout and there will be more job satisfaction, right, because the employee is feeling that like he is a citizen of that organization. And then organizational well-being, that is the organization will be, performance will increase, and therefore, there will be the no withdrawal behavior rather than participative behavior. So, we find that is this interaction expectations with the emotional events, and that will create the emotional labor. Emotional labor will also depend on the individual factors and into the organizational factors, and in the individual factors and organizational factors, then we have to take the employee well-being. Employee well-being, burnout and job satisfactions will be there, and if the job satisfaction is there, organizational well-being, better will be the performance, and there will be no withdrawal behavior is there. But this model, then again it has been modified and new model has come. That new model I will discuss in my the next session. So, therefore, in this session what we understand, that is the original model talks about in the stress, but I have started with the stress, and please understand that is the moods and emotions, they play very important role. And in that important role, we have to take care of all these aspects, dear friends. What is required? A moderate and functional stress level is required. It is not no stress, dear. We should not confuse that there will be no stress. Rather than we have to talk about that is the how executive glow up and burnout is there, and then in that case these are the different dimensions which will be creating you stress more, right, and this stress less is there. And then here we will find that is the how stress and emotional labor, right, and if there is a balanced way, I am sure that moods and emotions, that those will not be the weaknesses, rather than those will be the strength. But only condition is that we are able to use our emotions and moods in a right way, in a right direction, with the right people. So, this is all about the part 2 of the emotion and moods. So, thank you very much. Thanks.